There are lots of little updates in 10.2 that make it harder to predict what's happening next, the game is easier to progress than it's been in years, and fellow creators are fighting and not doing us any favors. Hey, it's Soul, this is Warcraft Weekly, your source of the best commentary according to the voices in my head. Hit the like button, subscribe for the WoW coverage, and let's talk. 10.2 is coming along quite nicely, and it's starting to look a little bit suspicious. We've got a new zone that's looking pretty stable so far. It's got a lot of everything, from way more questing that we got from Xeraluck Caverns, to rewards of all shapes and sizes, to some lucrative activities like the Super Bloom event that's going to need a little bit more hands-on experience before I can really talk about it, but I'm going to say at least for the moment, it's extremely accessible and definitely reflects on lessons learned from earlier patches. For example, actually testing them out. There's still a lot of testing to go, from the zone to raids and dungeons, but the state of the patch is looking pretty good. It's only been on the PTR for like 2 weeks, and outside of raids, it seems to be feature complete. Everything is testable. On top of that, this week didn't introduce very much system-wise, and maybe that's just being saved for the 10.2.5 and 0.7. It writes this narrative that I'm going to push that the team is in fact so far ahead with the meat of the patch that they can push into other things in the game. Keep in mind that not everything that we see from data mining is guaranteed to make it into this particular patch. These might be implemented later. Some of these are pretty straightforward, like these Blade Master beads that we see from the Warcraft 3 Heroes iconic look, or you might remember Thrall sporting a similar sort of thing before the fashion police showed up. According to Wowhead data mining, variants of these are going to show up on the trading post, and while we're not sure if they're class specific, they are set up for all the different races minus the Drakthir, because technically these beads are classified as chest armor. Is it possible we're going to finally get some updates for guilds? That's what some are speculating after a full round of tabards showed up in data mining this week. Wowhead pointed out the many variations of colors while there is no center emblem, indicating that this could be a blank template for what could be a new kind of guild tabard. As this is only a first look, I'm going to hold a little bit of skepticism, and here's why. There are a lot of colors data mined, but there's no changes in style, so this just might be one small guild tabard variant being added. Meanwhile, the current guild tabards don't seem to have a similar touch-up. That said, guild tabards are a likely outcome from this, but from observation, the unity of a guild, it just ain't what it used to be. Many seem to favor the conveniences as well as the consequences of queuing up for stuff or joining the pre-made group tool. But you know, it would be cool, a personal tabard that we can customize. It would be like my color, my sigil, or emblem that I get to decide so it can fit my transmog outfit better. This follows my current push of trying to add new kinds of rewards to World of Warcraft. I talked about custom mounts in an earlier video. That's a pretty big feature. Custom tabards is arguably a smaller feature, but it has the same pitch. It's a little bit of Warcraft that you can customize yourself to give your character that defining look and feel. Speaking of look and feel, let's go back to transmog options and this very obvious Dreadlord style armor. Shown on Wowhead, it gives off the vibe of a Dreadlord cosplayer, especially with those goofy mini wings that are stapled on there. There's another what I would call a cosplay set, this one of Logosh. We have an updated set of appearances for an iconic vanilla sword featuring multiple colors and a higher definition look. There are wristwatches, a sarong that's worn as clothing, this wasteland set which gives off some real Fallout / Borderlands vibes, wolf hats for orcs and Mag'har orcs, there's even more new tabards, there's scarabs, there's freaking demon bikes. So cool, there's more cosmetics from quests and the trading post and maybe the in-game shop. But what about this? What about new steam tanks and catapults that are also showing up in data mining? There's updates to ships and Darkmoon Fair assets. There are a lot of these hints, a lot of threads, and eventually we're going to be able to connect it all together, but for now, this is quite the pile of stuff to fill out 10.2. Reasonably, we can count on these assets being spread out over the course of months, whether it's between the trading post or the 0.5 or 0.7 patches and so on. The addition of all of this though, it has me drawing a few conclusions. First is that we're not really any closer to claiming with 100% certainty that there is or is not going to be a 10.3. There just isn't enough information to say one thing or another. What we are certain of though is that the world at large is being updated. Maybe it's not the Cataclysm level super event that we're thinking of, but instead like a series of slow stages, I guess. Like, hey, let's update some critical pieces of the world as we go. Steam tanks and demolishers being updated, well, that kind of sort of hints at Horde versus Alliance. It might even hint towards Horde plus Alliance versus something else, or a Winter Grasp or an Isle of Conquest update. There's a lot of directions that this can go, and I'm curious what some of your theories are. far. I just feel reassured that the direction is at least going like forward and in a good way. Like imagine in a bit over a month, we're introduced into WoW's next expansion, and one of the big features is this sweeping high-def update to all of the old zones and models. And hey, I'd be excited to have new quest lines and stories to experience too. Like here's an idea to share on how the WoW team can do this without it feeling a little bit too overwhelming, and I think it'd be kind of easy. Like we'll have our big high definition world update, but we'll still be focused on like a new continent to explore like Avaloran or the South Seas or Narnia or Canada. But peppered on these updated zones are a bunch of smaller, new quest lines to lightly bring the world up to speed since the Cataclysm. So it would be less obligation to go there and more a distraction from the regular day-to-day. Like, oh, you know what? I wonder how Twilight Highlands is doing. There's something new over there. Let's find out. Before we continue, let's give thanks to the sponsor of today's video, Ridge. They're doing a super special partnership with Hennessy this summer, featuring their own stylized wallet, and they're doing a sweepstakes to win an upgraded Hennessy Ford Bronco. This goes on until September 24th. There's no purchase necessary, just check out their website to enter, but you get more chances to win for every dollar spent. All you gotta do is go to ridge.com/soul and use code SOUL to get 10 more bonus chances to win. Ridge makes very minimalist, super stylish wallets that take a beating and are backed with a 99-day trial and lifetime guarantee. They're hella easy to use too. You just put your usual cards up front, you push it out and grab it or wedge it back in. I can do it way faster than I can explain it. Ridge features a wide variety of wallets and is bringing new ones in on the regular, including one of their newer styles, leather. Yeah, leather. Same durability, leather face. There are tons of other colors and styles like my still favorite Forged Ember to rep the horde, but hey, take a look for yourself. Hit up ridge.com/soul and use code SOUL to get 10% off of your purchase and an extra 10 bonus chances to win a new Ford Bronco, or you can get $75,000 in cash if you want that instead. It's a great product, give them a try. 10.2 is making itself out to be a very accessible patch for gearing up, despite what it's doing to slow things down a little bit compared to patch 10.1. Let me get you up to speed. In 10.1, or Season 2, gearing up hasn't been very tough to do at all thanks to the new upgrade system. Part of that system included different levels of crests, and there was a season cap to how much you can get on a character, and that cap happened to go up by 10 crests per week at the time. The thing is, the cap was really generous, to the point where after like maybe 3 or so weeks, one could theoretically be done gearing. Meanwhile, alts or newer players coming up, they just didn't realize that there was a cap at all, and you know, that's totally okay. The cap was really only meant for the folks participating in the Race to World First, as well as high performers who managed to get Keystone Hero and higher very quickly. But now let's cut to 10.2, where crests are basically replacing fragments, and fragments are just gone. From early looks, we're seeing that characters can earn 90 crests per week, down from 150. Now that's basically a 40% nerf to the pacing, which sounds really bad. And this is going to affect the early weeks of the season when career Mythic Plus people and Race to World First folks are hitting the aspect cap after like only a handful of dungeons or a raid before filling up the Great Vault. But there's a lot more to consider now. After a player does happen to hit the season cap, they're going to automatically be given the next crest down, so from Aspect to Worm to Drake to Whelpling. Since we're early into testing, I'm not quite sure if the overflow crests count towards the caps too, but I imagine that's still going to be a pretty rare scenario to run into. I'm not going to get too far into the math either, but there's only a set number of crests that a given character will ever need, because as they upgrade and get better gear, they no longer need those older crests to upgrade replacement gear to that level, and on top of that, players will be able to trade lower level crests for higher ones once they're no longer useful. So in practice, let's say that you have all champion level gear. It's all like 4 out of 8, and you need Worm Crest to go higher, but you don't need any Drakes at all, ever, for that character at least, for the rest of the season. But let's say you happen to help a friend with a lower key, or you just happen to get Drake Crest from a raid or a weekly chest or whatever. You can now trade those Drakes up for a Worm, and you can start climbing even higher. And that's not even all. Other perks and benefits from Season 2 are following us to Season 3 as well. The Revival Catalyst, that's going to start working on the first week. There's a twist though, the Catalyst is only going to gain a charge once every 2 weeks. It's down from once per week, but this will still definitely ensure that people will have their full bonuses in a shorter time frame, and alts are going to be just fine. The Season Master achievement returns as well, where if you get KSM or clear the heroic raid or you get to combatant 2 in PvP, you get a free piece of heroic level gear, or the equivalent. And while the heroic weekly quest is going away in the patch, it's actually sort of just moving to the Great Vault instead, because now you can complete heroic dungeons and mythic zeros and get a round of stuff from the vault. And unlike getting just one random box, you get a choice of up to 3 things. So no question, like at every level of play is a path towards becoming much more powerful in that level of play. Now there are debates, of course, over like whether the person who puts an hour a week into outdoor content deserves best in slot gear. Yeah, maybe that's a bit overblown, but you know what I mean. But for sure, the game has come a long way from the raid or die structure. Are gamers happy though? Are people getting excited to jump back into or get into World of Warcraft for the first time? As that debate rages on, earlier this week, we had a flash of drama between 2 personalities, PandaTV, who is a WoW streamer, and Michael from Bellular Gaming. It's a fantastic test case on how not to contribute towards improving your gaming community. And by that, I mean going after fellow creators. It's just a rotten idea. I'm gonna be brief on the details because I don't want it to sound like I'm trash talking or promoting someone here. But anyway, it all started with Panda seemingly unprompted, I think, going after Bellular and other critics in a post on Twitter, claiming that they nurture a sentiment of negativity towards the game and the WoW team. Bellular, of course, clapped back like, hey, I give both my praise and my criticism where it needs to be. He's like, no, you don't. He's like, yeah, I do. He's like, no, you don't, whatever. And then Panda got on a call with Asmongold to clarify his points, and that didn't go well either. I didn't watch the whole thing, but the energy coming from him felt pretty uncomfortable as Panda was trying to, he was trying to pull the curtain back and be like, aha, this is what Bellular is really after, the views. And while there is a conversation to be had about emotional clickbait, it just didn't take off here. I'm bringing this up because the discourse around WoW has been anything but simple, even though it does start that way. Like you, viewer, you might not be happy about something, and if you feel that way, share it. That's useful. When that dissatisfaction festers into something slightly less productive, like, hey, I'm not happy about something because it's the devs. They don't play their game. They're clearly just phoning it in, and they're incompetent. There's still feedback in there, but you gotta kind of do a little digging, right? But when we fans go after each other, as in like, hey, I'm upset because that person's talking smack and they're influencing the narrative, like, hey guy, you gotta do better. That doesn't really communicate anything useful. It doesn't even say anything to the developers. It's just drama, and also potentially for the views. But it's so easy. It's so easy to make that mistake too, trying to influence the influencer. I did the same a few years back. I poked the bear and I got swiped. That snarkiness of mine, that still comes out every now and then, even after so many years of making videos, but I've just learned to channel it a little bit differently. The way I do it, it might not be how the YouTube algorithm likes it. It may not make me become a successful creator at all, but I also think that it's extremely important to do it this way. I feel like, this is just me, right? I feel like it's a responsibility of mine as a creator to do more than just regurgitate what I listen to or to just explain my opinions and takes, but also to understand this critical feedback and turn it into what I hope are outcomes with improvements, kind of change the energy. And I admit that I feel kind of stupid with this sort of rhetoric here, but it's also the cornerstone of why I'm here on YouTube in the first place. It's to be a critic of this game that I've been playing, I've been enjoying for 19 years now, but to be a critic in my own way. I do have a great respect for Bellular's work ethic, his ambition, the general gameplay, and the lore videos that he does. They're great. But when he gets to his opinions, I'm totally turned off by his style and energy. The details aren't important. I'm not here to kick up dust. But just because his delivery doesn't connect to me, just because I might disagree with certain takes of his, does that make him a bad man? Is that him destroying the community? Should I fight him and tell him, you should stop doing that? Of course not. Of course I shouldn't do that. That's not how any of this works. All I can do is what I can do, which is to offer the kind of unique perspective that I have, and taking these criticisms and turn it into something maybe better that you folks can take with you in future conversations. Like, hey, that one Filipino looking dude? Hey, he's got something good to say. Toxic positivity, that is to shout down or ignore critical feedback, the super copium, that's a thing. It doesn't help. I really want to try to have folks leaving my opinion style videos a little inspired and hopeful for what's next, or at least thinking up better ideas than I can and sharing them, because having discussion like that is what I find to be tons of fun. We could use our imaginations and ask ourselves, hey, it would be cool. And maybe that's a bit childish, but for me, that's just a good mental state to have and one that I wish to encourage for others. And that's the show. A few parting questions for those of you who made it all the way back here. You folks are my algorithm boosters, and I appreciate it anyway. No one's got a surefire theory as to where we're going to be going in the next expansion. There are a lot of folks, including myself, who wanted a more mellow theme after Shadowlands. We got what we got, and I'm not dismissing the idea that a lack of grittiness made people kind of lose interest in this particular expansion. They just didn't really feel like picking it up. So I'm wondering, what do you think should be next? You can speak for yourself, or you can speak for what you feel is the greater audience, but story-wise, what should happen next in WoW that's going to get folks like super pumped and eager to dive in after a really long break? For now though, let's give a big thanks to our contributors over on Twitch and Patreon. Another thanks to all of you who made it to the very end. And there's just a little bit more. Please like the video, subscribe for more of the coverage, catch me live, and I will catch you later. Stay safe, stay healthy, and stay breezy.